Behind the bar, my wife in another man's arms. I turned away, sick. His wife grabbed my shoulder and smiled. "Don't worry," she whispered. "Trust me. You'll want to see how this ends." She knew something I didn't. Something that would cost me everything I'd built. And she wasn't trying to help me. She was using me. My name is Gabriel Drummond. I'm 52 years old, and I've spent the last 24 years building what I thought was an unshakable life in Atlanta. Co-owner of a mid-sized accounting firm, 2 grown kids, a marriage that functioned like a well-maintained engine. Not flashy, but reliable. Or so I believed. The holiday party was held at the Piedmont Social Club, one of those venues that tries too hard to look effortless. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, jazz quartet in the corner playing standards nobody under 60 remembers. Our firm had merged with Nelson Holt's consulting group 3 years ago, and these joint celebrations had become tradition. Good for morale, our HR director insisted. Good for partnerships. Allison, my wife, had been excited about tonight. She'd spent an hour getting ready, tried on 3 different dresses, settled on the burgundy one that made her look younger than her 50 years. "We should make an effort," she'd said, fastening her earrings. "Nelson's been working so hard on the Thompson acquisition. We should celebrate properly." Nelson Holt had been my business partner and closest friend for over 20 years. We'd started as competitors, became allies, eventually merged our firms into something stronger than either of us could build alone. Our families vacationed together. Our kids grew up in the same schools. When my father died, Nelson stood beside me at the funeral and didn't say a word, just stood there, solid as a wall when I needed one. At the party, Allison drifted away from me almost immediately, pulled into a conversation with the senior partners' wives near the champagne fountain. I watched her laugh at something someone said, watched her touch the arm of Nelson's wife, Nicole, with easy familiarity. Everything looked normal. I made small talk with clients, shook hands with employees I barely recognized from the consulting side. The room hummed with forced cheerfulness and expensive wine. Around 9 p.m., I needed air. The crowd was suffocating. Too many voices, too much cologne, too much pretending that quarterly reports mattered more than they did. I moved toward the bar, tucked into a corner behind tall decorative plants and dim lighting. The bartender was mixing something complicated for a woman in pearls. I waited, loosening my tie, when I saw them. Behind the bar, in a narrow space between the back counter and the wall where the liquor bottles caught the light, my wife in another man's arms. Not dancing, not laughing, kissing. Nelson's hand was on the small of her back, fingers spread possessively. Allison's hand curled into his collar, pulling him closer. The kiss wasn't hesitant or guilty. It was practiced, comfortable, the kind of intimacy that doesn't ask permission because it doesn't need to. My stomach turned. I stepped back, turning away, suddenly sick. The room tilted. My hands went cold. That's when I felt it. A hand on my shoulder, firm but not aggressive. I turned. Nicole Holt stood beside me, Nelson's wife, her expression calm, almost serene. She wasn't looking at the bar. She was looking at me. Her lips curved into a small smile. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't worry," she said quietly. "Trust me. You'll want to see how this ends." Her eyes held something I couldn't name. Not anger. Not sadness. Certainty. She knew something I didn't. I didn't sleep that night. Allison came home around midnight, smelling of wine and perfume that wasn't hers. She kissed my cheek, brief, mechanical, and went upstairs to shower. I stayed on the couch, staring at the Christmas tree we'd decorated together 2 weeks ago, wondering how long the lights had been blinking over a lie. The text came at 7:14 a.m. Unknown number. Corner bakery on Peachtree. 9 a.m. Come alone. Nicole. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend the previous night had been a misunderstanding, some trick of lighting and champagne. But Nicole's face kept returning to me, that calm smile, those knowing eyes. The bakery was half empty when I arrived. Nicole sat in the back corner booth, 2 coffees already on the table. She wore jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back simply. She looked different outside the party's glitter, sharper, more focused. "Thank you for coming," she said as I slid into the seat across from her. "Did I have a choice?" I asked. "Everyone has a choice, Gabriel," Nicole replied evenly. "You could have gone to work, pretended last night didn't happen, continued living in whatever story you've been telling yourself. The words stung because they were true. She pushed a coffee toward me. I found out about 3 weeks ago. Not the full extent, just enough to know something was wrong. Did you confront him? I asked. Once, she said. He told me I was imagining things. That Allison was helping him with client presentations. Nothing more. Said I was stressed, overreacting. I recognized the tactic. Allison had used similar language on me for months whenever I questioned her late nights at the office. Nicole opened a slim folder. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages between Nelson and Allison. Nothing explicitly romantic, but the familiarity was unmistakable. Dinner plans, inside jokes, references to next steps and our timeline. They've been careful, Nicole said. But careful isn't the same as invisible. She slid another page forward. Bank statements. Small transfers from our joint business account to a separate LLC I didn't recognize. $3,500 here, $4,200 there. Amounts large enough to matter, small enough to slip past quarterly reviews. What is this? I asked, my throat tightening. Nelson formed a consulting LLC 6 months ago, Nicole explained. He's been funneling money from your merged accounts into it. Small amounts, consistent timing, labeled as operational consulting fees. I felt sick. Our accountants would have flagged this. Would they? Nicole asked. Who reviews those reports? The answer hit me like cold water. Nelson did. As managing partner of the consulting division, he had primary oversight of those accounts. There's more, Nicole continued, her voice steady but tired. I accessed Nelson's laptop last week while he was showering. Found draft presentations for the Fulton County Development Project. My chest tightened. The Fulton project was mine. I'd spent 8 months developing the financial model, the risk assessment, the pitch to county leadership. It was scheduled to present to the board next Wednesday. Nicole turned her tablet toward me. On the screen was a presentation deck. My presentation. Same structure, same data, same examples. Even the formatting matched my style perfectly. But the author line read, Nelson Holt and Allison Drummond, Strategic Development Team. They copied it, I said quietly. Yes, Nicole replied. And they're planning to pitch it as their own in 4 days. Something cold settled in my chest. This wasn't just an affair. This was theft. Systematic, calculated theft of my work, my reputation, my business. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Nicole looked at me directly. Because if we confront them now, they'll claim it was collaborative. They'll say you shared files, that this was team development, that we're bitter spouses inventing conspiracies. So what do you want to do? I want them to present it, she said calmly. I want them to stand in front of the board and claim ownership. I want them to commit fully, publicly, where there's no room to backtrack. I stared at her. You want to let them steal my work? I want to let them prove they're thieves, Nicole corrected. Intent is harder to deny when it's demonstrated in front of witnesses. I ran a hand through my hair. This will destroy everything. It's already destroyed, Gabriel, she said quietly. We're just deciding whether to clean up the mess quietly or make sure everyone sees who made it. I thought about my kids. Harper working as Nelson's assistant, probably unaware of any of this. Michael deployed overseas, unreachable. I thought about 24 years of marriage, 20 years of friendship. I need proof, I said finally. More than screenshots and suspicions. Nicole nodded. I can get access logs from the server. Timestamps showing when Allison accessed your files. But I need your help. What kind of help? The kind where you act normal for 4 more days, she said. Where you don't confront Allison. Where you let them believe they're winning. I looked at the bank statements, the stolen presentation, the text messages carefully worded to sound innocent but weren't. All right, I said. 4 days. Nicole's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes sharpened. Good. Because, Gabriel, when this is over, they won't be able to claim ignorance. Outside, Atlanta traffic hummed past. Inside, I finished my coffee and wondered if the man I'd been yesterday would recognize the man I was becoming. The next 4 days required performance I didn't know I was capable of. I went to work, reviewed client files, attended meetings where Nelson sat 3 chairs away, making jokes about golf and quarterly projections. I smiled when expected. I nodded at appropriate moments. I became a ghost haunting my own life. Harper called on Tuesday evening. My daughter's voice carried the bright urgency of someone who believed they had good news. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," she said. "What's going on?" I asked, settling into my home office chair. "It's about Nelson," Harper began. "Some people at the firm have been saying things. Rumors about the Fulton County presentation, about Mom helping with strategy. I just want you to know that Nelson's been nothing but professional with me." My chest tightened. "Harper, what exactly have you heard?" "That you're upset about the project presentation," she said carefully. "That maybe you feel left out of the development process." "Dad, Nelson's my boss. He's been mentoring me for 2 years. Whatever's happening between you guys, I can't get in the middle of it." The implication landed like a punch. My own daughter, positioning herself on the fence, already choosing career over truth. "I understand," I said quietly. "Do you?" Harper's voice sharpened. "Because Nelson said you've been acting strange lately. Distant. He's worried about you." I almost laughed. Nelson was worried about me. "Harper, I need you to listen carefully," I said, choosing my words with surgical precision. "In a few days, some things are going to come to light. When they do, I need you to remember that I never asked you to choose sides. But I also need you to be prepared for what you might learn." Silence on the line. Then, quietly, "Dad, you're scaring me." "I'm just asking you to keep an open mind," I replied. "Can you do that?" "I guess," she said, uncertainty creeping into her voice. After we hung up, I sat in the dark office, wondering how long she'd been defending Nelson without realizing what she was defending. Wednesday brought a different blow. My younger brother, Pete, called just after lunch. "Gabe, I heard about the separation," he said without preamble. "What separation?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Come on, don't play games. Mom told me you and Allison are having problems." "Look, I know this is bad timing, but I'm in a bind. The restaurant needs a capital infusion, $50,000 to cover back rent and supplier debts. Since you're liquidating assets anyway for the divorce." "Pete, stop," I interrupted. "I'm not getting divorced. Not yet. And even if I were, where would you get the idea I have $50,000 lying around?" "Mom said you were sitting on the business accounts," Pete said, irritation edging his tone. "Said you and Nelson were flush from the merger." I closed my eyes. Allison had been talking to my mother, setting narratives, preparing the ground. "I can't help you right now," I said. "Can't or won't." Pete shot back. "You know what, forget it. I should have known better than to ask. You always were tight with money." He hung up before I could respond. That evening, I found the letter. It was tucked into my briefing case, folded precisely, Allison's handwriting on the outside. "For when you're ready to talk." Inside, her words were careful, measured. "Gabriel, I know you've been struggling. The distance between us hasn't been easy for either of us. I think we should consider couples counseling before things get worse. I've been feeling invisible for so long, and I don't want to lose what we built. Please think about it." I read it twice, searching for sincerity, finding only strategy. She knew something was coming. She was building her defense. Thursday morning, I met Nicole briefly in a parking garage downtown. She handed me a USB drive. "Server access logs," she said. "Time-stamped entries showing Allison accessed your project files on October 3rd, October 17th, and November 2nd. All outside business hours. All from Nelson's office computer." "How did you get this?" I asked. "Doesn't matter," Nicole replied. "What matters is that it's documented. IT keeps records of everything. This is admissible." I pocketed the drive. "The presentation is tomorrow." "I know," she said. "Are you ready?" I thought about Harper's defensive tone, about Pete's accusation, about Allison's letter carefully crafted to paint me as the unstable one. "No," I admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." Nicole almost smiled. "That's the only kind of ready that counts." Friday morning started with physical pain. I've been ignoring the symptoms for weeks: difficulty urinating, dull ache in my lower back, fatigue that sleep didn't fix. I told myself it was stress, the body keeping score of betrayals the mind couldn't process yet. Dr. Raymond's office called at 8:15 a.m., just as I was reviewing notes for the Fulton presentation that would happen without me in the room. "Mr. Drummond, we need you to come in today," the nurse said, her voice professionally neutral. "Dr. Raymond wants to discuss your lab results." "I have an important meeting," I started. "Today, Mr. Drummond," she repeated firmly. "We had a cancellation at 10 a.m. Can you make that work? Something in her tone made my hands go cold. I'll be there. Dr. Raymond didn't waste time with pleasantries. He pulled up imaging on his computer screen, pointing to areas I didn't understand but recognized as problematic by the way his jaw tightened. Your PSA levels are elevated, he said, significantly. Combined with the symptoms you described and the imaging results, I'm recommending an immediate biopsy. But I need to be frank with you, Gabriel. This looks like early-stage prostate cancer. The words arrived from a distance, like hearing them through water. Early stage. I repeated. Caught soon enough that treatment options are good. Dr. Raymond continued. Surgery, radiation, hormone therapy. We'll know more after the biopsy, but the prognosis for early intervention is generally favorable. How soon? I asked. We can schedule the biopsy for next week. Results in 7 to 10 days. Then we'll map treatment. I sat there, absorbing the timeline. Biopsy. Results. Treatment. All while my marriage collapsed. My business partnership shattered. My daughter chose her career over truth. Is this stress-related? I asked quietly. Dr. Raymond hesitated. Stress doesn't cause cancer, Gabriel. But chronic stress can suppress immune function, potentially accelerating existing conditions. Why do you ask? Just trying to understand the timing, I replied. I drove to the office in a fog. The presentation was scheduled for 1 p.m. Nicole had confirmed that morning. Nelson and Allison were in the conference room early, setting up, practicing their delivery of my stolen work. At 11:47 a.m., Allison texted, Can we talk tonight? Really talk? I miss you. I stared at the message. The manipulation was almost elegant, timing her emotional appeal for the exact moment she knew I'd be most vulnerable, most likely to question my own judgment. I typed back, okay, not because I want to talk, because I needed her to believe she still had leverage. At 12:30 p.m., I received confirmation from legal. They had the evidence packet, access logs, financial transfers, the original presentation files with creation timestamps. Everything Nicole and I had compiled. Everything that would turn this from accusation into documentation. At 12:55 p.m., I walked into the conference room where the board waited. Nelson and Allison stood at the front, confident and prepared. They saw me enter, and something flickered across Nelson's face. Not guilt, calculation. Gabriel, he said warmly, didn't expect to see you here. Thought you were handling the Fulton County Review today. Postponed it. I replied, taking a seat in the back row. Wouldn't miss this presentation for anything. Allison's smile wavered slightly. She glanced at Nelson, then back at me. The board chairman called the meeting to order. Let's begin. Nelson, Allison, you have the floor. As they launched into the introduction, my words, I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger anymore. Certainty. Let them prove what they are, I thought. Let everyone see. The board's decision came Monday morning, delivered by email at 6:47 a.m. before I'd finished my first coffee. Clinical language, carefully worded to avoid liability. After thorough review of the Fulton County matter and associated financial irregularities, the firm has decided to restructure its partnership arrangement. Nelson Holt will retain his position as managing partner of strategic consulting. Allison Drummond has been placed on administrative leave. Gabriel Drummond is offered a voluntary separation package, including 6-month severance and COBRA continuation. I read it 3 times, each word landing like a physical blow. They were keeping Nelson, firing me. My phone rang. The senior partner, Richard Covington, his voice professionally sympathetic. Gabriel, I know this isn't what you hoped for, but Nelson brings significant client relationships we can't afford to lose. The optics of terminating both parties would damage client confidence. We're offering you a generous package to facilitate a smooth transition. Generous. I repeated flatly. You're rewarding the man who stole my work and embezzled from our accounts. The financial matter remains under investigation, Richard said carefully. But the presentation issue is murky. Shared files, collaborative environment. Our legal team feels prosecution would be difficult. Nelson's agreed to reimburse the question transfers. Frankly, Gabriel, fighting this publicly would hurt you more than him. Because he's more valuable, I said. Richard's silence confirmed it. The package is non-negotiable, he continued. We need your answer by Wednesday. I hung up without responding. At 8:15 a.m., my mother called. Her voice carried the particular edge she used when defending family against perceived injustice. "Gabriel, I just spoke with Allison," she said. "She's devastated. She said you've been trying to force her out of the firm because you're jealous of her success with Nelson." I closed my eyes. "Mom, that's not what happened. She said you've been emotionally distant for years," my mother continued. "That you've made her feel invisible, criticized her work, isolated her from friends. She's filing a complaint about hostile work environment." "She's lying," I said quietly. "Is she?" my mother challenged. "Because Pete told me you refused to help him when he needed family support. Your own brother, Gabriel. And now you're destroying your wife's career out of spite." "Pete asked for $50,000 I don't have," I said. "And Allison stole my work." "That's your perspective," my mother replied coldly. "But from where I'm standing, you look like a man who can't handle a successful wife. Your father would be ashamed." The line went dead. I sat in my home office, surrounded by 24 years of accumulated life. Photos of family vacations, Harper's college diploma, Michael's military commissioning portrait, and wondered when everything I'd built had become evidence against me. Nicole called at noon. "I heard about the board's decision." "News travels fast," I said. "I'm sorry, Gabriel," she said, and meant it. "But there's something else you need to know. Nelson filed a defamation lawsuit against you this morning. He's claiming you fabricated evidence to damage his reputation and business relationships. He's seeking $500,000 in damages." My hands went numb. "On what grounds?" "He's arguing that the access logs were misinterpreted, that the financial transfers were legitimate business expenses you're distorting for personal revenge. His attorney's positioning this as a jealous partner trying to destroy a more successful colleague." "Can he win?" I asked. "Depends on the judge, the jury, how well his lawyers perform," Nicole said. "But even if he loses, the legal fees alone could bankrupt you. That's the point. Make fighting him too expensive to sustain." I thought about the medical bills coming for cancer treatment, the severance that wouldn't last 6 months if I was fighting a lawsuit, Harper's silence since the board meeting, Michael unreachable in whatever combat zone he'd been deployed to. "What would you do?" I asked Nicole. She was quiet for a moment. "I'd remember that Nelson's not just fighting you. He's fighting the truth. And the truth has a way of surfacing, even when buried under legal briefs." That evening, Allison came to the house to collect more belongings. She moved through rooms like a stranger, cataloging items for auction. I watched from the kitchen doorway. "The firm chose him," I said quietly. She paused, a framed photo of us from our honeymoon in her hands. "They chose profit, Gabriel. Nelson brings in $3 million annually in consulting fees. You bring in compliance and caution. It's not personal." "It feels personal," I replied. "Everything feels personal to you lately," Allison said, setting the frame down. "That's part of the problem. You've made this about betrayal instead of what it really is, two people who grew apart and made different choices." "You stole my work," I said. "I contributed to a collaborative project," she corrected. "You're the one who turned it into theft because you couldn't accept that I was succeeding without you." The gaslighting was almost beautiful in its construction. "I have cancer," I said suddenly. "Prostate cancer. Early stage, but it's there." Allison's expression shifted. Something that might have been genuine concern flickered before the mask returned. "I'm sorry. Truly. But Gabriel, you can't use that to manipulate me into." "I'm not manipulating anything," I interrupted. "I'm just telling you the truth. Something you've forgotten how to do." She picked up her box of belongings. "My attorney will be in touch about the separation agreement. I'd suggest you hire someone good. This doesn't have to be ugly, but it will be if you force it." After she left, I found myself in Michael's old bedroom, sitting on the bed he hadn't slept in for 3 years. On the wall, his high school football jersey hung in a frame. Number 42. Harper had given it to him for graduation. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dad, it's Harper. Using a friend's phone. I don't know what to believe anymore. Nelson showed me the lawsuit. Says you're trying to ruin him because you can't compete. Is that true?" I stared at the message, my daughter's doubt rendered in pixels. I typed no, but I understand why you're confused. When you're ready to hear the full story, I'll tell you everything. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. Wednesday morning brought paperwork. the separation agreement the firm insisted I sign by end of business. 6-month severance, non-disparagement clause, waiver of all claims. Accept it or fight with empty pockets. I sat across from the attorney I'd hired, Douglas Brenner, a sharp-eyed litigator who'd reviewed the documents with increasing disgust. This is predatory, Douglas said, tapping the non-disparagement section. They're buying your silence about the theft and embezzlement. If you sign this, you can't testify against Nelson in any future proceedings, can't discuss the matter publicly, can't assist in any investigation. You're essentially exonerating him. What happens if I don't sign? I asked. They terminate you for cause. You get nothing, and Nelson's defamation suit proceeds uncontested while you're broke, Douglas replied. Gabriel, I'll be honest. This is a fight you probably can't win financially. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't fight it. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Gabriel Drummond? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. Yes. This is Lieutenant Valdez with Atlanta PD, Financial Crimes Unit. We've received a complaint from Nelson Holt regarding harassment and potential fraud. We'd like you to come in for a voluntary interview. My stomach dropped. Fraud. Mr. Holt alleges you falsified business documents to frame him for embezzlement. He's provided what he claims is evidence that you manipulated server logs and financial records. We need to hear your side. I looked at Douglas, who was already shaking his head sharply. I'd like to consult with my attorney before scheduling anything, I said carefully. Of course, Lieutenant Valdez replied. But Mr. Drummond, cooperation now would be viewed favorably. Delay makes things look worse. After I hung up, Douglas leaned back in his chair. He's escalating. Criminal allegations change everything. If they charge you, even if it's dismissed later, the damage to your reputation is permanent. Can they make charges stick? I asked. Depends on what evidence Nelson manufactured, Douglas said. But fighting criminal charges while battling a civil lawsuit, while going through divorce, while dealing with cancer? Gabriel, most men would break under half that pressure. I'm not most men, I said quietly. Douglas studied me. No, I'm starting to see that. But you need to understand what you're walking into. Nelson has resources, firm support, and apparently no conscience. This will get uglier before it resolves. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Allison. I heard about the police. This has gone too far. Drop the accusations against Nelson, and I'll convince him to drop the lawsuit. We can end this quietly. For the kid's sake. I showed Douglas the message. That's witness intimidation, he said. Save that. That afternoon, I met Nicole in a park near downtown, away from offices and cameras. She sat on a bench feeding pigeons, looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. Nelson's playing hardball, she said without preamble. I noticed, I replied, sitting beside her. There's something I need to tell you, Nicole continued, her voice careful. Something I should have mentioned earlier, but didn't because I thought I could handle it separately. My chest tightened. What? Nelson and I have been legally separated for 8 months, she said quietly. We filed quietly, kept it out of public record, continued appearing together at firm functions to avoid disrupting business relationships. I stared at her. 8 months. I found out about the affair with Allison a year ago, Nicole explained. Confronted him. He promised to end it. I believed him until I realized the financial irregularities weren't stopping. That's when I understood this wasn't just about the affair. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I needed your reaction to be genuine, she said, meeting my eyes. At the party, when you saw them, I needed you authentically shocked, genuinely hurt. If you'd known I was already planning my exit, it would have looked coordinated. The betrayal was different, but still sharp. You used me. I gave you evidence, Nicole corrected. Evidence you needed to protect yourself. Would you have preferred ignorance? I couldn't answer that honestly. There's more, Nicole continued. My divorce attorney found something during asset discovery. Nelson's been moving money offshore for months. Not the small amounts from your firm, substantial sums. Over $700,000 transferred to accounts in the Cayman Islands. That's why you pushed for the presentation, I said slowly. You needed him to commit professional fraud publicly, so your divorce case would have leverage. I needed him to prove he's exactly what I know him to be, Nicole replied. A man who destroys anything that threatens his image of himself. Your stolen work was just convenient timing. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt something colder, understanding. So what now? I asked. Now we both fight our separate battles, Nicole said. My divorce. Your lawsuit. Your criminal investigation. But Gabriel, you need to know, I have evidence about the offshore accounts. Evidence I'm willing to share with investigators if it becomes necessary. That would expose your divorce strategy, I said. Some things matter more than strategy, she replied. Nelson's planning to destroy you financially and legally to prevent you from testifying in my divorce case. If he succeeds, he keeps the offshore money and walks away clean. I can't let that happen. She handed me a USB drive. Copies of the offshore transfers. Banking records. Dates that correspond with the embezzlement from your firm. Use it if you need to. But Gabriel, once you do, there's no going back. This becomes a war neither of you will walk away from unchanged. I pocketed the drive. I'm already changed. Nicole stood, adjusting her coat against the autumn wind. Yes, but the question is whether you'll let what he did make you smaller or force you to become something harder. She walked away, leaving me on the bench with a USB drive that could either save me or guarantee mutually assured destruction. My phone rang. Dr. Raymond's office, scheduling the prostate biopsy for Friday morning. I answered, confirmed the appointment, and wondered if my body was keeping score of damage my mind couldn't quantify yet. The prostate biopsy Friday morning was clinical and humiliating, exactly what I needed to remind me that control was an illusion. Dr. Raymond promised results in 10 days. 10 more days of not knowing whether the cells multiplying inside me were hostile or harmless. I drove straight from the medical center to Douglas's office. My attorney had news, and his tone on the phone suggested it wasn't good. Nelson's legal team filed for expedited discovery, Douglas said, spreading documents across his desk. They want access to all your communications with Nicole, your financial records, medical files, everything. They're arguing your cancer diagnosis proves you're unstable, making irrational decisions due to health stress. They're using my cancer against me, I said flatly. They're building a narrative, Douglas corrected. Sick man, betrayed by successful wife, lashes out at former friend who's thriving. It plays well to juries who want simple stories. I stared at the ceiling. What do we have? Douglas pulled out the USB drive Nicole had given me, the offshore account records. This changes everything. 700,000 in transfers to Cayman accounts, all dated within the embezzlement timeline. If we introduce this, Nelson's not just a cheating partner, he's a felon. What's the downside? I asked. It exposes Nicole's divorce strategy, Douglas said. Proves she was gathering evidence while still married, possibly illegally accessing Nelson's financial records. His lawyers will argue she manipulated you into being her weapon against him. Isn't that exactly what she did? I asked. Douglas leaned back. Legally, yes. Morally, that's above my pay grade. But Gabriel, if we use this, there's no middle ground left. This becomes total war. My phone buzzed. Harper, finally responding after days of silence. Dad, I need to talk. Can we meet? I typed back immediately. When and where? Her reply came fast. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. The coffee shop near your house. Just us. I showed Douglas the exchange. Be careful, he warned. She might be recording for Allison's legal team. She's my daughter, I said. She's also Nelson's employee, Douglas replied. And desperate people make family complicated. That evening, I sat in my study reviewing the offshore account evidence. The transfers were meticulous, small enough to avoid immediate red flags, timed to coincide with legitimate business expenses. Nelson had been planning this for over a year, maybe longer. The doorbell rang at 8:47 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, Nicole, wearing jeans and a heavy coat, her face pale in the porch light. I opened the door. What happened? Nelson knows I gave you the offshore records, she said, stepping inside quickly. He showed up at my apartment an hour ago. Didn't threaten me directly, just made it very clear that if that information surfaces, he'll destroy my divorce settlement and make sure I'm charged with illegal surveillance. How does he know? I asked. He has friends in forensic IT, Nicole said. They traced the file transfers from my laptop. I was careful, but not careful enough. She pulled an envelope from her coat. These are the originals, bank statements, transfer confirmations, all of it. I'm giving them to you because if I hold them, Nelson will get a court order to confiscate them as stolen marital property. You're making me the target. I said. I'm giving you ammunition, Nicole corrected. Gabriel, he's going to come after both of us anyway. At least this way, you can fight back. I took the envelope. Inside were documents that could send Nelson to federal prison or make me look like a co-conspirator in a legal evidence gathering. There's one more thing, Nicole said quietly. Nelson's attorney contacted Harper this afternoon, offered her a promotion to junior partner if she testifies that you've been mentally unstable for months, that you've made paranoid accusations about colleagues, that the cancer diagnosis has affected your judgment. My stomach dropped. Will she do it? I don't know, Nicole admitted. But they're pressuring her. And Gabriel, she's 25, ambitious, scared. They're offering her everything she thinks she wants. After Nicole left, I sat with the envelope unopened, thinking about Harper's text. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Just us. Was she coming to warn me or to gather evidence? I opened the envelope and began reading. By midnight, I understood the full scope of Nelson's theft. Not just from our firm, but from 3 other clients, routing money through shell companies, creating a financial architecture designed to hide wealth while appearing legitimate. This wasn't opportunistic fraud. This was sophisticated, long-term criminal enterprise. And tomorrow, I find out if my daughter would help expose it or help bury me. Harper arrived exactly on time, dressed professionally, her expression guarded. We ordered coffee in silence, then found a corner table away from other patrons. She didn't look at me directly, bad sign. Thanks for meeting me, I said carefully. I almost didn't come, Harper admitted. Nelson's attorney said you might try to manipulate me, use emotional appeals to turn me against people who've helped my career. Is that what you think I'd do? I asked. She finally met my eyes. I don't know what to think anymore, Dad. 2 weeks ago, I had a normal life. Now my parents are getting divorced. My boss is suing you. And everyone at work looks at me like I'm contaminated. Harper, I need to tell you something. And I need you to just listen, I said. Not as Nelson's employee, as my daughter. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. I explained it all. The stolen presentation, the embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the affair. I didn't editorialize, didn't dramatize. Just facts, dates, documentation. When I finished, Harper was pale. You're saying Mom and Nelson have been planning this for over a year. At least, I confirmed. And you have proof? She asked. I slid a folder across the table. Copies of the access logs, the financial transfers, the offshore banking records. All documented, time-stamped, verifiable. Harper opened the folder, her hands shaking slightly as she read. Minutes passed. Her coffee went cold. They offered me junior partner, she said finally, voice hollow. Yesterday, Nelson said it was based on merit, on my work with the Reynolds account. But now you understand it was payment for testimony. I finished. She closed the folder. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. I won't ask you to testify. Won't ask you to choose sides publicly. I just need you to know the truth before you make decisions that you can't unmake. Harper's eyes filled with tears. I've been defending him, Dad. For 2 weeks, I've been telling people you were jealous, unstable. I said Mom deserved better. You didn't know, I said quietly. I should have known, she replied, voice breaking. You're my father. I should have believed you. Harper, listen to me, I said firmly. What happens next is your choice. You don't owe me your career. You don't owe me public support. But I need to know, if they ask you to lie, to testify that I've been mentally unstable, will you do it? She wiped her eyes. No, I won't lie for them. That's all I needed to hear, I said. But Dad, I can't quit, Harper said. I have student loans, rent, health insurance through the firm. If I walk away now. I'm not asking you to walk away, I interrupted. I'm asking you to refuse to participate in destroying me. There's a difference. Harper nodded slowly. They're going to fire me anyway once they realize I won't cooperate. Probably, I agreed. But you'll still have your integrity. She almost smiled. That and $4 buys coffee. We sat quietly for a moment. Then Harper reached across the table and squeezed my hand, brief but real. I'm sorry I doubted you, she said. You're young, I replied. You're supposed to question things. Not my father's basic honesty, she said. That was just cowardice disguised as professionalism. After Harper left, I sat alone, finishing cold coffee, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not that everything would work out, but that at least one person I loved saw me clearly. My phone buzzed. Douglas, my attorney. The firm accepted your refusal of the severance package. They're terminating you for cause effective immediately. No severance, no COBRA, no references. And Nelson's criminal complaint has been forwarded to the DA's office for review. Understood, I said. Gabriel, you're in serious trouble, Douglas said. Medical bills piling up, no income, facing criminal investigation and civil lawsuit. Most men would fold. I'm not folding, I said. Then get ready, Douglas replied, because they're coming at you with everything. I hung up and walked out into Atlanta autumn air, unemployed, possibly dying, definitely broke, and somehow more certain than I'd been in years. They wanted me to disappear quietly. Instead, I was going to make noise. The biopsy results came back on a Tuesday morning. Early-stage prostate cancer, treatable, manageable. Dr. Raymond recommended surgery within 6 weeks. I scheduled it for the day after Nelson's trial was set to begin. Douglas called that same afternoon with news that changed everything. The DA's office reviewed Nelson's criminal complaint against you, he said. They're not filing charges. The forensic analysis of the server logs confirmed your evidence is legitimate. But Gabriel, there's more. What? I asked. The FBI's Economic Crimes Unit opened an investigation into Nelson's offshore accounts, Douglas explained. The transfers you documented match patterns from 3 other fraud cases they've been tracking. Nelson's not just stealing from your firm. He's part of a larger scheme. I sat down slowly. How long? They've been watching him for 8 months, Douglas said. Your evidence accelerated their timeline. They're moving to seize assets and file federal charges within 2 weeks. That evening, Allison showed up at the house unannounced. She looked smaller somehow, worn down by something I couldn't name. The FBI contacted me, she said quietly, about Nelson's financial activities. They wanted to testify. Will you? I asked. I don't know what I know anymore, Allison admitted. I thought we were building something together. Now I'm realizing I was just useful. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. There's something else, she continued. I found letters. In Nelson's office, hidden in old client files. Letters from years ago, planning this, planning the merger, the positioning, even the affair. It was strategic from the beginning. She pulled folded papers from her purse, sliding them across the kitchen table. I recognized Nelson's handwriting immediately. Detailed notes about exploiting our firm's accounting gaps, about cultivating relationships with partners' wives for leverage, about building exit strategies that left others holding liability. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because I was wrong, Allison said, her voice breaking. And because Harper deserves better than parents who destroy each other. Harper had quit the firm 3 days after our coffee meeting. Nelson had tried to block her unemployment claim, but she'd found work at a smaller practice that valued integrity over politics. I'm not dropping the divorce, I said carefully. I know, Allison replied. I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking if we can end this without more bloodshed. 2 days later, Nelson's attorney contacted Douglas with a settlement offer. Nelson would drop all lawsuits, reimburse the embezzled funds, and provide a statement clearing my name in exchange for me not testifying in the federal case. They're scared, Douglas said. The FBI doesn't need your testimony to prosecute, but your statement would make conviction certain. They're trying to reduce exposure. What happens if I refuse? I asked. Nelson goes to federal prison for 8 to 12 years, Douglas said. The firm loses its consulting division. 23 employees lose jobs. I thought about those employees. Good people who trusted the wrong leader. Tell them I'll consider it, I said. On one condition. Nelson signs a complete confession detailing the embezzlement, the affair, and his manipulation of Allison. Not for court. For Harper. The confession arrived 2 days later. 4 pages of detailed admission, notarized and complete. I gave it to Harper without comment. She read it once, then burned it in her fireplace. I don't need his words, she told me. I needed to know you'd fight for truth, even when it cost you everything. 10 months later, I stood in a smaller office with a view of Midtown Atlanta, running a forensic accounting consultancy that specialized in fraud detection. The cancer surgery had been successful, clean margins, good prognosis. Harper worked 3 doors down, building a practice in business ethics law. Nelson pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges in August, received 9 years, served time at a minimum security facility in Kentucky. The firm dissolved 6 months after his conviction, partners scattering to other practices. Allison and I finalized our divorce quietly. She moved to Savannah, started teaching business courses at a community college. We spoke occasionally, cordially, like people who'd survived something together without remaining friends. Nicole got her divorce settlement, significantly reduced after Nelson's assets were seized, but enough to start over. She opened a victims advocacy nonprofit, helping people navigate financial abuse in marriages. My mother never apologized for siding with Allison, but she started calling again around Christmas. Small steps. Pete's restaurant failed despite the loan he never got from me. He blamed everyone but himself, which seemed consistent. Michael came home from deployment in January, quieter but whole. He spent 2 weeks with me, asking questions about the divorce I answered honestly. He didn't choose sides, just accepted that families were complicated. One afternoon, Harper and I had lunch at the cafe, where she'd chosen truth over career advancement. "Do you regret it?" I asked, walking away from junior partner. "Every time I see my student loan balance," Harper said, smiling. "But not when I look in the mirror." "That's the trade," I said. "Was it worth it for you?" she asked. "Everything you lost?" I thought about that. The marriage that ended. The friendship that was never real. The firm I'd helped build. The year of legal battles and medical procedures and nights, wondering if I'd made the right choices. "I didn't lose everything," I said finally. "I lost the things that were already gone. What I kept matters more." Harper squeezed my hand. "That's a very dad answer." "It's the only one I have," I replied. Walking back to my office, I passed the building where our old firm used to be. New company now, different sign, no trace of what came before. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. The truth hadn't made everything perfect. It had just made things real. And real, I'd learned, was something you could build on. Even when you were starting over at 52 with scars and lessons, and a daughter who'd chosen integrity when it cost her everything. That was enough. Not everything I'd hoped for, but everything I needed to keep moving forward.